Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Looking Outside the Industry, How to Make Hemp a Centerpiece of the Pennsylvania Economy at the Pennsylvania Hemp Summit. My name is Phil Stober, and I'm the Division Chief of Economic Development in the Bureau of Market Development within the PDA, and also the Director of the Agricultural Business Development Center. Established as part of the 2019 Farm Bill, the Agricultural Business Development Center, we also call it the ABDC, is a new initiative spanning the Bureau of Market Development's Economic Development Division. It was designed to enhance the long-term vitality of Pennsylvania's farms. The ABDC is focused on providing support for sound business planning, efficient transition of farm ownership, strategic farm expansion, diversification of agricultural production, and building a team of financial and technical experts here as a resource for Pennsylvania farmers. Because of this and ABDC's sort of our new approach here in the industry is because of this, we're very enthusiastic about the opportunities for hemp in Pennsylvania. Hemp is an increasingly significant U.S. agricultural product, and Pennsylvania continues to encourage its growth. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's panel. So, and including in today's panel is Glen Kayll. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Hemp Plastics Company. We have Heidi Barr, founder of the Kitchen Garden Series, and Henry Valles, who is the founding board member of the U.S. Hemp Building Association. And we're going to look to these three today to, as well as leaders in their industry. And we're going to learn ways in which hemp can help boost the Pennsylvania economy. So before we get started, as a general housekeeping, please remain muted during the session. Each presenter will have individual time to present. You may submit your questions in the little chat feature, and I'll be looking at that, and that's at the bottom of the screen. And the following other presentations, we will address your questions. So feel free to put your questions in while the speakers are speaking, but then we're going to address all of those at the end. So I guess without further ado, I would like to introduce our first panelist, which is Glen Kayll. And again, Glen is the Chief Executive Officer of the Hemp Plastics Company. Glen, thank you very much. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Phil. Let me get this set up. I hope everybody can see that. Thank you for joining the presentation for the Hemp Plastics Company. Oh no, my page down is not working. So I'm gonna have to scroll down. Sorry, everybody. So there's our safe harbor. Kindly read that at your convenience. So why does the Hemp Plastics Company exist? And I think we fundamentally look at this and say we have a major problem. And the major problem is the impact that fossil fuel plastics are having on the planet. We make about 350 million tons a year of it. That's growing on an annual basis. That means 1 billion tons of plastic every 3 years. That's a real issue. And there's a variety of different solutions that can happen for this space. You can either go to full bio-sourced plastics. You can go to not using reusable containers or the like. You can change your behavior, but essentially plastic's here to stay. So our solution is, how do we make this more palatable? How do we reduce or introduce a product that's available today in volume to significantly reduce the amount of fossil fuel plastic that is used, while still allowing people to have a product that they can use for whatever application that they're targeting. Sustainable plastics is growing. The bioplastics market is growing significantly. It's expected to reach around $70 billion by 2024. But that's still nothing compared to the size of the plastics market. So plastics production is on the rise. And one of the reasons why it is, it's just a great material to work with. It's incredibly cheap. It's incredibly pliable. You can do it in a number of different applications. It can be strong. There's a very large number of varieties of it that you can use for a whole bunch of different applications. It's very, very popular and will continue to be popular. But we have something here that's that we need to address. It releases CO2, it fills our landfills, and it pollutes our oceans. And we need to do something about it. So, of course, there's a renewed global focus on the use of plastics, whether it's regulatory or it's C-level executives or it's education, it's children, it's political. It's a very, very significant issue that we're all having to deal with. Recycling doesn't solve all the problem. It solves part of the problem, but not all the problem. We need a variety of different solutions that we can use to fix this problem. So what are we doing? We said, look, we know that hemp is on the grow right now because of a massive deregulation event, and the hemp market is expected to grow significantly. We also know the demand for sustainable materials and bioplastics are likely to grow over the next number of years. So how can we merge those two and provide products today in volume that allow us to make a meaningful impact at a reasonable cost on the overall market and on plastic use? And we've been able to do that. So in a couple of short years, we've been able to build a product portfolio, bring products to market, establish an intellectual property portfolio, and get our products into use in the market. So why hemp plastic? Well, hemp is a very, very good CO2 absorber. Hemp is also becoming far more available. What people don't understand is when you make CBD, you make an awful lot of hemp waste. When you utilize hemp for fiber, for concrete, for paper, for whatever it may be, it is absolutely going to grow, and there's absolutely material for everyone to use. This is coming. The deregulation event in the United States has had a material impact on farming in the US, and the growth of hemp is coming. So we wanted to be able to use that in our products. So what did we do? We realized that there's a lot of calls for unicorns out there. That's the plastic that biodegrades in your backyard but has an unlimited shelf life and is available in volume and is incredibly cheap. Well, that really doesn't exist. Oh, and it works in all applications. That doesn't really exist. So what we tried to do is we tried to say, look, we're going to provide some compostable products, some 100% bio-based products, and some fossil fuel-based filled products in order to meet the needs of the various different consumers of plastic out there, given the circumstances that they have to deal with. So we have a number of plastics that are available that use hemp as a filler, for instance, that significantly reduce your CO2 footprint, significantly reduce your plastic footprint, look incredibly good. You can see some of the examples on our screen, are available in volume today, and don't require that you do major shifts to your manufacturing processes in order to be able to use it. Our customers are plastics customers. They're the companies that are using plastics to make things. They do that in high volume. So our objective is to try to create these alternatives that meet a sustainability requirement, but can still be manufactured in volume at a reasonable price. And we do that. So just an example, for instance, if you were running, say, a polyethylene and you wanted to run a hemp polyethylene, which is something that we offer, you can reduce your plastic content by 25%, and you can reduce your CO2 impact by 65%, because hemp is one of Mother Nature's greatest CO2 absorbers. So take out a CO2 consuming or releasing plastic and replace it with a CO2 sequestering hemp. You end up with a great looking product at a reasonable price that significantly reduces your CO2 output. So that can be part of a framework of a customer's desire for sustainability objectives. So what do we sell? We sell the actual resins. We're a specialty resin company. We don't sell jars. We don't sell plastic bags. We don't sell pens. We sell the pellets that allow you to make those things. It's amazing. I came into this business. It's absolutely amazing how many applications I have seen in the last year and a half that I never thought would be made out of hemp plastic. There's a lot of things in development. So it's very, very cool being in this kind of part of the business, because we can try to help a whole bunch of different industries and a whole bunch of great ideas for helping to improve the planet. We target our products at injection mold applications. We're working on extrusion applications as well. And we have 5 different products available to the market right now, and we're working on more. But great big end markets like rigid packaging, automotive markets, agricultural, chemical, consumer cleaning, industrial, and government markets. These are large, large verticals that are looking for a sustainable option that may not be that or need to be that unicorn. We've come to market with a large amount of manufacturing capacity. This is a good start. We have over 30 million pounds of manufacturing capacity. That means we can supply companies. Our objective here is long-term relationships with our customers. We need to show them that we can manufacture in volume. We need to show that we understand that they need a marketable item, a cost-effective item, and a sustainable item as well. And we need to show that we're here for the long term. So we have an intellectual property portfolio that we put together of over 16 patents and patent applications. We continue to work on more as we do more R&D, and we're bringing products to market today. So what have we got today? We've got 5 products available to the market today. We do a number of different customizations on top of that, so people can get different colors or UV inhibitors or impact modifiers or a variety of different things they want to be able to do that. We've been able to establish ourselves, I believe, as a specialty polymer company. We are a plastics company that happens to use hemp. We hope to use an awful lot of hemp over the long run. We've established sales reps and distributors. We have our FDA legal opinions. We have patents. We have manufacturing capacity. We have supply. And we've developed an R&D and product placement process. Our management team, essentially it's myself. I would classify myself as a disruptive technology guy. I've been in a variety of different markets. I see this hemp as a fundamental disruptive technology for plastic, paper, concrete, fabric, or the like. Fantastic material, big deregulation event. That's change, and that's good change for the markets. Greg Dean, our Chief Commercial and Operations Officer, has 25 years experience in the plastics industry. I'm learning a lot from Greg. Greg's amazing, and his knowledge about the space is incredible. And I'm learning a lot from Paul Benheim too, who's a hemp pioneer. He's been in hemp for 25 years. He's founded companies. He's written books. He's an exceptional resource in the hemp space and extremely well known. He's our founder and chairman. It's a real pleasure working with both of these gentlemen. That's it. I hope I've been able to explain a bit about what we're doing and what our vision is. We want to make a major disruption in the plastic space over the period of years with long-term customer relationships, providing low-cost, rapid, sustainable offerings that are available in volume. That's all I have to say.
I don't know if it's muted.
Great. Thank you so much, Glen. So again, Glen's from the Hemp Plastics company. That was wonderful. And as we were talking about before, really impressed by the progress that's been made in this side of the business. Our next speaker this morning, is Heidi Barr. Again, Heidi is from Kitchen Garden Series. And Heidi, if you want to take the steering wheel, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Phil. And let me just get this going. Hello, and so it's an honor and my pleasure to be at the table today and to speak to you about bast fibers, textiles as part of regenerative agricultural systems. I am the founder of the Kitchen Garden Series, which is a Philadelphia-based lifestyle brand working at the intersection of food and fabric. We offer a line of textiles that range from aprons to produce storage bags to reusable linen coffee filters, all designed to be used in direct relationship to food. And as I began developing these textiles, it became really clear to me how important it is to choose natural fibers when you're working directly with food, both for human health and for environmental health. And I developed a very deep understanding of fabric as a crop, exactly like food on our tables. And really would like to see textile production put back into regenerative agricultural systems. So I began working primarily with linen and fell in love with the fabric only to discover that there's no domestic source for it or for its close cousin and my other favorite fabric, hemp, in the United States. So I started looking into how to revitalize that industry, which led me to Emma Kunif and Mihai Farm, where we grew our first crop of flax for linen this year. And our work is really about community and about reclaiming our textile agriculture. The textile industry has become a very dirty industry, but it doesn't have to be. So flax for linen and hemp, when put back into regenerative agricultural systems, are fine fabrics that are climate beneficial with many uses across industries. And the industry of producing these fibers is still very vibrant in Europe and Canada. And there's no reason why we can't also be providing good jobs and meeting the worldwide demand for the fiber from right here in Pennsylvania. The interruption of the bast fiber industry in the United States was pretty intentional. As you know, hemp was outlawed, and so that was pretty intentional. And the flax into linen production was disrupted by its competitors in the synthetic fiber industry. So let's talk a little bit about why flax and hemp, what makes them climate beneficial textiles. The two plants share a lot of characteristics that make them great for our farmers. They're both 100-day crops, meaning they fit nicely into a crop rotation. They require very few inputs. They don't need to be irrigated. They're pretty pest resistant. They're both phytoremediation plants, meaning that they draw toxins out of the soil and improve soil health, which increases farms. The dense planting required for fine fiber means that they suppress weeds, which is incredibly beneficial to organic farmers. And the main difference between the two in terms of a crop is that flax is pulled to harvest, which has the benefit of leaving a clean bed for what's planted next. And hemp is cut to harvest, which has the benefit of adding more organic matter into the soil. And both are great for soil carbon sequestration. So from a fabric end of it, like why process it into fine fabrics, what makes that wonderful? They also share some qualities that make them very sought after by designers and consumers alike. They have antibacterial qualities. They're made of long fibers, so they're durable and resistant to abrasion. They put zero pollutants into the water when laundered. When they do wear out, they're ultimately compostable. They're stronger when they're wet than when they're dry and more absorbent than cotton, making them great for use in the kitchen and the bedroom and the bathroom. So processing the bast fibers is not a new idea. Humans have been working with these plants for thousands of years. And this slide shows the pre-industrial methods for processing. These steps would be shared by both flax and hemp, and this is how it's processed into yarn for spinning or knitting. I like to say that this arduous and somewhat magical process surely is what they meant when they spoke about spinning straw into gold. And likewise, this beautiful post-industrial way to do it is just as magical. So this slide shows a regional Scotch mill, the type that is in operation all over Europe and Canada. And it shows the different steps. These pictures are flax, but the same steps would be used for hemp with the exception of the first step. Flax has to be pulled to harvest. Hemp would use a different machine. But the material is then retted or laid out on the field. It's a process that happens with the microbes in the soil and the dew that separates the pectins in the plant from the bast fiber. At that stage, it's baled and now can be stored for up to 2 years before going to mill, which is the center picture is a Scotch mill in operation, separating the woody core from the bast fibers in preparation to be combed into this beautiful golden fiber that you see at the bottom, and then spun into yarn for fine fabrics. So this mechanical system is what doesn't exist right now in the United States and what I'm working to get back up and running. There are many economic benefits to revitalizing this industry. The jobs that will be created will be clean jobs. They'll call for skilled labor across industries. They'll benefit existing industry and strengthen our local supply chain. And because the plants are both great at soil carbon sequestration, they'll also help to mitigate climate catastrophe. So revitalizing the industry will offer increased productivity on existing farms, offering a cover crop that fits nicely into rotation that has commercial value. And the phytoremediation will improve the soil health, making the farm overall more productive. The jobs will be created both in the scutch mills, but also again in a spinning mill, a weaving mill, and a knitting mill. And then again at the cut and sew level. So that's a lot of new jobs that could be created here to meet the demand for the products produced across the industries, including fashion and home goods, which is my niche, also in furniture for upholstery. And so this slide just gives you a quick shot of some flax initiatives around the country. Many of these organizations also work with hemp, just showing that I'm not alone in wanting to revitalize this industry. And if you have only a moment to explore one of these, please look at Fibershed, Rebecca Burgess's work in carbon capture of fiber farming. She's very knowledgeable and inspirational. So what's next, right? My hope is that what is next is bast fiber production with flax and hemp farming and milling into fine fabrics, and that we can support one another and revitalize both industries. On this slide with me is Emma Cuniff in the center, who has a diversified vegetable farm near Pottstown. And at the bottom is Eric White of the Hempstead at Mountaindale Farm, who is a hemp farmer. And we are in conversation, and it's this sort of collaboration that's going to make this happen. I'd also like to mention that I'm in conversation with the Philadelphia Fashion and Garment Industry Task Force about the benefits and the possibilities for a sketch mill in Philadelphia, and also with All Together Now Pennsylvania, which is Judy Wix's new initiative. And hopefully all together, we can revitalize a green textile industry in Pennsylvania. So that's it, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Great job. Very interesting stuff. And if I can, I'm going to put a plug in right now if anybody wants to visit Heidi's website. It's a beautiful website, and the Christmas season is coming along, and there's a lot of really great items there that one might want to have a look at that are sustainable and environmentally friendly. So thank you so much, Heidi. Our next speaker is Henry Valles. Again, Henry is the founding board member of the U.S. Hemp Building Association. And so he takes a look at hemp from another prism. Very interesting stuff. So Henry, if you want to take the wheel from Heidi, and we look forward to hearing about hempcrete and so on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. Let me share my screen real quick. We're good there. So thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I am in Austin, Texas, but got a lot of love for Pennsylvania, so I feel very honored to be invited by you guys. Just want to give a quick introductory of myself, my background, and how I got into this hemp space, and what I'm looking to do to bring hemp building materials to the mainstream building and real estate industry. So little background about myself. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and began my studies at Florida International University. Moved to Austin, Texas back in 2006. Studied at St. Edward's University down in the right-hand corner. UT is also here, University of Texas, which is the huge school in Austin that most people know, and started working in property management and real estate. When I graduated, I joined a real estate team on Realty Austin, and we worked with a lot of buyers, sellers, and investors, but we specialized with new construction, condo development, and condo conversions. Was on a successful team, and these were a few of the projects that we worked on in the central Austin area. So was really involved with new construction, and really understanding the process and the type of materials and things that were going into our homes. Back in July of 2014, just scrolling through my Facebook pages, I've always really been big into health and sustainability, and found this ad for the National Hemp Industries Association hemp building course, and had no idea what hempcrete was or what hemp was in general. I knew the other side of the cannabis plant, but hemp from an industrial standpoint had no idea about. So wanted to learn, given that I was working in real estate and new construction, maybe this was something that we can offer to our market here in Austin, Texas. So ended up attending the course that was taught by Steve Allen, a world-renowned hemp builder and founder of the International Hemp Building Association. He also puts on pretty amazing international hemp building symposiums, showcasing hemp building projects from across the world and any other hemp building technologies that are out there. And at this course, I learned what hempcrete or hemp lime construction is, which you'll come to find there's a bit of a debate on, should we call it hemp lime or hempcrete? So that's something that we're trying to figure out as an industry as well. So what hemp lime is a combination of the woody core of the hemp stalk, the hemp shiv, with a natural lime binder or natural cement mixed with water. And what you get is kind of a lightweight concrete insulation replacement. And so some of the benefits of hemp lime hempcrete construction is, one, it's carbon sequestering, like you've heard from Heidi and Glen as well. There's excellent moisture and thermal capabilities. It helps regulate the humidity in a home. So that's what helps it be mold resistant, fire resistant, rot resistant. Also improves the quality of your air, so improved health. There's very little to zero VOCs when you're using hempcrete and natural lime or cement-based binders. And there's a low embodied energy to this type of material, which I'll get into, which is something that I didn't learn about until I went to this hempcrete course.
Henry, I'm just going to interrupt really briefly. Can you put your slides into present mode? Because we actually see.
Oh, the next one. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Give me 1 second.
Shows how passionate you are about it, because you're going through it.
Let me stop my share real quick and exit. You know what had happened was, I'm on a dual monitor and it shared the wrong one. Apologize. So you're seeing this one. Which, are you seeing that now or no? Same thing?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, perfect. So let me go back. So there's 4 main ways of hempcrete or hemp lime installation methods. You have cast in place, where you're forming around your studs and you kind of build it up as kind of like a rammed earth method. There's prefabricated and casted hemp blocks, kind of like cinder blocks, and you just mortar them together. That's a much more faster and efficient way. Pre-panelized wall systems hasn't really hit the mainstream market here in the States. I know they're working on this in Europe, trying to get that more fine-tuned. And then spray applied. where you have either pre-mixed hempcrete that actually one of your great companies in Pennsylvania, Marichambre, does quite a bit of, pre-mixed hempcrete, or the binder and the hemp hurd meet at the nozzle and you just spray apply the installation. Another great thing about hemp building materials is not just hempcrete. You have a lot of other potentialities in the building industry. So you have a hemp wool insulation, Hempitecture, which is a great hemp building company based out of Idaho, that they showcase and sell. It's easy. Low learning curve, just replacing kind of fiber bat or fiberglass insulations. You have hemp fiber board. Also, there's a great company out of Kentucky that's doing hemp wood, practically like bamboo floors or any other wood-based materials. And also hemp shield, which is a hemp oil-based wood sealant that's found to have lasted much longer and of better quality. Oregon State University has done a great class on hemp shield as well. And so one of the most important things to consider with hemp-based building material is understanding the embodied energy of your structures versus just the operational energy used. So when you have operational energy, you're just pretty much calculating what is the energy use of your building structure. But the embodied energy is taking into account where these materials were sourced, how are they transported, what was the assembly like, what's its use, what is the maintenance needed of these structures and materials, and how are they disposed of. So those are really important things to consider, especially when you have the construction industry in terms of building operations and building materials and construction that account for almost 40% of our global CO2 emissions. But like a couple of our great presenters have just talked about as well, hemp is a great carbon sequestering plant, one of the best Mother Nature has provided us with. And during the hemp construction process, if you're looking at hempcrete or hemp lime, the cultivation of hemp is accounting for 90% of that CO2 sequestration. And then the solidification and the curing of the hemp lime is accounting for about 10% of that CO2 during the project. So hempcrete continues to harden throughout its lifespan, reabsorbing the CO2, which is hardening and calcifying your hemp blocks or your wall system. So when I went to this course, I had to find a way to bring this to the mainstream market in Austin, but Austin is it's a booming real estate town, and it is not a cheap place to purchase land and things of that nature. So I try to find a way to bring this to the mainstream market and also do good for the community. So an architect here in town, Cody Gatlin, and a builder, Doug Cameron, we got together and we put a fundraiser to build a tiny hemp home for a homeless community called Community First Village. I would highly recommend you guys look into. It's an amazing approach to tackle the homelessness issue. And we wanted to do this to educate the local building market and to really help with the legalization of hemp in Texas, which happened in 2019, and to show our farmers and building industry, hey, you have an alternative and a huge industry for our farmers to produce for and to be supported with this new hemp, this budding hemp industry. So along with that, at the U.S. Hemp Building, at the International Hemp Building Symposium, a couple of us that were there together said we needed something like this for the United States market. And so Eric McKee out of Denver, Tommy and Maddie out of Idaho with Hempitecture, and myself formulated the U.S. Hemp Building Association. And we really wanted to do this to be advocates for hemp-based building materials and really help bring these types of materials and building methods to the mainstream. So, you know, still being pretty new, there's quite a bit of, you know, impactful U.S. hemp building projects in the United States. In the top left corner, it's a beautiful home out of Bellingham that Hemp did. They really focused in on efficient methods and try to cut down the labor time and the efficiency of cast in place hempcrete. There's a house in Hawaii, which is amazing because it was built to seismic code as well. One of the first hemp building projects was in Asheville, North Carolina, that was built for the mayor. That's down in the bottom left corner. And then one of your own in PA, in partnership with Hemp in Missouri, did the first sprayed applied hempcrete project, which is really important because this is making it more obtainable and cost efficient in terms of the application, reducing labor time and cost to get these practices more affordable and acceptable to the market. So what is next? One of the most important things about this, and really taking into consideration the embodied energy, is localizing our materials. So one, we need to educate our farmers on how to grow and what is the most profitable way for them as well. Are they dual crops where you can grow for CBD, or even tri-crops that I've heard some farmers talk about for grain, CBD, and also fiber? We need to have our processing facilities and making sure the processors understand the quality that we need for our hemp hurd and shiv and other offset building materials. And then also localizing your binders. You know, that really encompasses the whole hemp lime, hempcrete system that you need. And luckily you guys in PA have a great company as well called Limeworks. So you really have the budding ingredients to really make this happen. Here in Austin, we found a company that does hydrated lime, which is an ingredient of that. We just needed an additive for the to help it set for the pozzolan for the binder as well. So some of the other important things we really need to focus on to really bring this to the mainstream building industry is to work with ASTM and ICC on getting these buildings certified and approved, working with your local municipalities and your city building permitted officials. Really work with universities and research studies to equate the benefits and the performance of these homes, and really educate your builders, architects, engineers, contractors, realtors, and then also having the insurance companies, banks, and home warranty companies understand the benefits of these materials and how it could be a much more sustainable and safer home as well. These are some of the universities that have already done some research on these. There's great Healthy Materials Lab in Parsons in New York that's close to you, has an amazing hemp lime guide, and they're doing a lot of great work and research with hemp-based and hemp lime-based building materials. And here in Austin, Texas, we have another materials lab and some universities in Kentucky and California. And so really to get the industry and the consumer excited about these, we need to get large scale real estate projects built. So I'd love to show these examples in Europe where they have these large scale projects. Here in Italy, you have a beautiful condo project. In the UK, the Triangle Housing Project is for affordable housing. And then also you have a brewery, Adnams Brewery, which use this and have found huge, and also has a beautiful green roof, has found huge savings on their operational and energy costs. And one of the things I'm really passionate about as well is using hempcrete and sprayed applied methods for restoration of old buildings, helping insulate them better and preserving them with the high quality of lime hemp-based preservation techniques that they have out there. So I truly appreciate your time, and thank you for having me on board.
Thank you very much, Henry. Excellent, excellent presentation. So those are three chock full of information for folks to kind of wrap your head around what's happening in the hemp industry and how we can adapt some of this, hopefully here in Pennsylvania. So everyone, please feel free to throw your questions into the chat. A number have come in already. So I'll just kind of go through them in the order in which they came. This first one is actually for Glen. And the question is, how would you evaluate the export potential for your products, especially in highly regulated markets where environmental awareness is of prime importance, such as Japan and Western Europe?
Yes, so we've actually done very limited advertising, if any at all, for the work that we're doing right now. And we have a number of incoming inquiries for our material all around the world. The US is our primary target market, but we've got European interest, significant European interest, and significant Commonwealth country interest as well. So I think it's very applicable to many of these locations. Again, if you can look at, we do offer a compostable product, but we also offer these fossil fuel hemp blend products. And I think a lot of these countries, a lot of these companies and organizations are really looking for, how do I solve these sustainable problems? How do I solve the CO2 problem? How do I solve the biodegradable problem, whichever problem they happen to be doing? And that resonates very, very well in Europe. We're actually working with a group right now that will help us distribute in volume in Europe, actually a couple of groups. Not so much in Japan to date. We have had some interest in Japan, but I'm not sure the hemp regulations in Japan have moved forward as they have in, say, Western Europe and the US and Canada and elsewhere. So yeah, we got a lot of interest. And interestingly, we get a lot of interest from Central and South America as well. So there's every country has their own angle, whether it's a plastic tax or it's a tax credit for a sustainable alternative or whatever it may be. But there's certainly demand coming from those regions.
Thanks, Glenn. And I guess, so to that end, what are some of the specific challenges? It seems that places like Canada and Europe seem to embrace this much more so than Americans do. Don't know what that is. And maybe that's just, I'm not sure if that observation is correct. It's sort of personal how I look at it. But so what are the challenges here in the United States that don't seem to be, again, it seems to be embraced more in Europe, perhaps in Central America. What is the stumbling block here in the States? And what do you believe our next steps need to be to, obviously we're not going to do it all at the same time, but what are sort of the baby steps we can take to kind of get us down this road?
Well, I think in the plastics industry, for us, I think we're kind of fortunate because the industry is so large. You can't even conceptualize how big it is. And all you have to do is walk around your house and your business and just take a look around and see how much plastic there is around you at all times. So we're fortunate that we can address verticals that are already in the process of adopting sustainable solutions. The big chunk of it is awareness, and the other big chunk of it is cost concerns. So when a lot of fossil fuel plastics are based on natural gas is at all-time lows. It's very, very cheap to make fossil fuel plastic. It's very, very, there's an awful large capacity to make it out there. And I think most people aren't aware of just how much is being made. You can drive by, an office building or a plant and not realize that they're making 100 million pounds of plastic every year in that plant that has no, you wouldn't know that there was a plastic plant there. And this is in many, many communities, many, many neighborhoods. It's funny when I go on a little trip, I'll say, oh, there's another plastics company. There's another plastics company. And they're all over the place, and we're making very large amounts of this stuff. So I think awareness, I think understanding that the cost of fossil fuel plastic and disposal of fossil fuel plastic or non-sustainable alternatives does not reflect the cost of disposal. So we've got to find a way as a society to say this needs to be important, and it needs to be. We're largely sheltered from disposal. We're largely we've been convinced that the efforts that we're undertaking for environmental protection are working, and I think people are starting to realize that's not the case, and that we all need to be stepping up our game a little bit. part of the reason why we make it is we try to make it as simple as possible. If somebody is running polypropylene right now, I want them to run hemp polypropylene, because it does cost more. There's another question here on cost. It does cost more, but it doesn't cost that much more. And you end up with a material that you can be proud of. You can actually say, look, I'm actually taking an action. We as, you know, I'm in my early 50s. I've got kids in college. I'm going to have grandkids, hopefully not too soon. But the point is, we got to start taking action today. If we wait 3 years, that's another billion tons of plastic. So we have to start taking action today. And so try to step out of your comfort zone and say, what can I do today? And a lot of companies are doing it. We're very encouraged by the larger, high volume consumers of fossil fuel resins that are looking for alternatives to make it a little bit better. And we're not going to fix the whole world. We're going to try and fix a big chunk of it as soon as we can.
And Glen, what do you think? Obviously, sitting from where I'm sitting, and this question as actually could go to Heidi and to Henry, is what can government do? I mean, what were if you guys could wave your magic wand, and this question is to all three of you, what would you like? Where can government have some sort of an impact on each of the various elements of the industry that you guys are working in? And I know that's a pretty broad question, but if you could wave the magic wand, what would you like government? Would it be tax breaks? Is it more on the education front? Just curious, and this is open to all three of you.
I could speak to that briefly. I mean, I think tax incentives for green solutions, for climate beneficial solutions to the problems with plastic production, and which is actually synthetic textile production, since synthetic textiles are plastics, right? And I also think education in terms of large public education about the true cost of these cheap products, right? Synthetic fabric and fast fashion and single-use disposable plastics are all easy on our wallets in the short term, but there is a real long-term cost that is paid in other ways. And I think a public education push to point out the true cost of inexpensive disposables and the true value of regeneratively produced products that are climate beneficial. That would be a great government focus. Public education, right? Yeah.
Right. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, thanks.
Henry, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to, practically mirror exactly what Heidi said, but just more from a developmental and construction perspective. One, I think education is really important. It's funny, the last home that I lived in, I lived across the street from a high school that had a building course, and they had in their parking lot, kind of mock-up sheds and just teaching the students construction, implementing that into the curriculum and teaching them about embodied energy versus occupational energy, and wanting to understand the source of their materials is really important. Also, tax breaks, I think, is extremely critical, or rebates or whatever that might be. Right now, hemp construction is more expensive than typical construction materials. Could be anywhere between 10 to 30%, depending on the method and the type of build. So I think builders are willing to put a little bit more of a costly product out there if they get some of those rebate backs to help mitigate that additional cost, especially in markets where margins are really low. And then also, if our governments can kind of walk the talk and use these materials in their own, governmental funded projects and public facilities. So if they're doing it, then the public, they usually have more exposure. would also be a great educational tool, but they're also, you know, showing, hey, we're using these materials too. And like Heidi said, in terms of the cost to our environment, in our built environment where we spend almost 70–80% of our time, there's a health cost to that as well. So understanding using more non-toxic building materials could have a huge health benefit to us as well.
Great, thanks, Henry. Okay, we have some more questions coming in. This one is for you specifically, Heidi. The question is, why can't we purchase a Scotch mill? What's the barrier? There could be regional co-op. What's the holdup? Website, please.
All right, so my website is thekitchengardenseries.com. I'll pop that in the chat later. This is in process, so we can purchase a Scotch mill. I am working with a couple of business women in Oregon who are 8 years ahead of me in this process. And really the only holdup is that we have to import the machinery from Europe to get a regional size mill. And so there have been efforts to revitalize the industry of processing bast fiber for fine fabric before, which have not succeeded in the United States. And what we learned from that is that we really need to grow the regional farming and the regional processing equipment at the same time. So that's what we're trying to accomplish this time so that we can succeed. And in January, I'll be sharing business plan with the women in Oregon. Actually, they'll be sharing their business plan with me, and we'll continue to move forward on this. So the holdup is really going to come down to investment dollars because it will be expensive to get operational. But we are on the way. So there's no reason it can't happen here. It's happening in Europe and Canada. We can bring it back to the United States.
So Heidi, as a follow-up to that, which you sort of answered, so the question was, how complicated would it be to set up a hemp panel manufacturing facility in the US? I guess that this would be maybe for, is that like hemp? I'm trying to figure out what that question means. Is it a panel questioner? Karen, do you want to take yourself off mute? And I'm not sure if I asked that question correctly.
Yes, I'm concerned about using it for construction. My thinking is that for builders, having an existing panel of standardized size would certainly speed processing, I would think. Henry, you can certainly talk to this. But if someone is new to the whole realm of hemp construction, they might be hesitant, like the tamping, the cast in place, like, oh, it's so labor intensive, the spray on, oh, it's so messy. But if they have simple panels, which are, it's a much larger unit, of course, than the smaller blocks, I would think that there would be benefits to the size, and I would think easier installation. But Henry, perhaps you can address that.
Yeah, it definitely would be easier installation, in terms of, for me, from my perspective, I think the pre-panelized wall systems is, better for production builders to kind of replace like your, larger KB homes or DR Hortons where they have a set of, consistent floor plans that they can mass produce those panels, right? But in the same token, I would tell you that, I just walked a site on a new construction with fiber-based installation, and it was really messy too. So, you could replace, a healthier mess for a non-healthier, sustainable mess. So, and that just really comes down to the work site. But yeah, I think the pre-panelized wall system is where our production builders, and when you're building these mass communities of, 100, 500,000 lots, and you have a sequence of 5 to 6 different floor plans, could really help in that process.
Thank you, Henry. Okay, the next question is, and this is, I guess, open to all three of you. The focus has been in reuse and recycle. Now that the recycling industry is not functioning, how can we change the narrative to green solutions?
Well, maybe I'll start with that one. You know, when you're dealing with such a large amount of material and such an urgent need, and as people become more aware, I think we have to do it all. And that's the challenging part of this. We are going to continue to produce large numbers of cars and homes and appliances and gosh, all the stuff that we get coming into our company. I hadn't even thought of many of it being produced out of plastics, for instance. We need to recycle more. We need to use less. We need to reuse more. We need to address our greenhouse gas emissions, as well as biodegradable options. We need to do it all. And I think, you know, trying to point at one solution and say that's the correct solution is the challenge. It's a broad approach. And anytime somebody asks me, you know, what policy change do I need? I don't say that. I'm not a policymaker. I'm a business person. But what I do know is that you will get adoption of hemp-based products, for instance. You'll get an adoption of hemp-based product once we get to scale, because the cost of hemp-based products will drop down once you get to scale, and the adoption will be new. So we need a transition process where the change cost to using hemp-based products is very low, and the upside benefit of using hemp-based products, many of which are public goods, as opposed to, you know, it makes a stronger wall, or it makes there's an environmental benefit to this, which is a public good that doesn't get monetized in a business decision. So the whole kind of thing is, okay, we need to do more of everything, and we need policy to reflect the true value of implementing these products over the process that we used before. And I think that's what a lot of people, and particularly in Europe, you're starting to see holistic approaches to regulation around using environmental alternatives, with the understanding as well as if Europe and potentially the US and Canada can manage to get ahead of the curve and do the learning they need to do to bring these environmental solutions to the market, that'll actually provide them, the countries or the nations, a economic benefit, so that we can advise the rest of the world on how to do it. And there's a service and a intellectual property benefit to those nations who lead the charge on this. So I think, hopefully I answered some of that question, but I think it's kind of a holistic idea as to what is the true value of all of this and how urgent is it, which I believe is extremely urgent.
No question, Glenn. Heidi, I'm sorry, did you have a way in there?
It's okay. I like Glenn. That's great. I'd like to add to that when we direct our focus towards systems that are regenerative, they have value through the whole cycle. And as if we can start as a culture to understand that if it's regenerative, it means it's not going to be thrown away, right? It's going to feed itself and renew itself, and so it has a permanent, ongoing value. And those regenerative systems, which all of these hemp-based systems are, will actually like endlessly create jobs without creating a huge waste stream. So there is a huge economic benefit, and Americans really like to talk about economic benefit. So if we can make the environmental be economic, right? If we can point it out that these systems have huge long-term economic benefits in our communities.
Heidi, so within that, so the question, of course, when it comes down to financing and, you know, how much money is expended and how much you're going to get back out on the other end. So one of the questions is, you know, how much infrastructure do we already have? And I guess this would be specifically towards sort of the textiles and where your focus is. How much of that do we already have that could be repurposed? Like, I think about all the textile mills that used to be sort of in North Carolina in the South, and do those still exist? Or when the textile industry went away in the 80s, did that stuff just get repurposed to, you know, condos or malls or whatever? So, you know, how much of a infrastructure investment is it like totally, is it huge that's mind-blowing, or is there lots of stuff that's already out there that we could repurpose, which would make that infrastructure build out less onerous?
That's a great question. There's a lot of different ways to answer it. In terms of processing bast fibers in particular, so hemp and flax for fine fabrics, the infrastructure for milling that from plant to spinnable fiber really doesn't exist in the United States anymore. So that piece of the infrastructure would require significant investment. But if we start with regional scale mills, it brings those numbers down and makes it more achievable. Once you get to the weaving, knitting, and cut and sew level, that infrastructure still is hanging on in the United States. I work with cut and sew people in Allentown who have been there for decades, who are hungry for more work. They are hanging on to their businesses at every level of the textile production, and they need Americans to start producing in America. You know, they, like the factory I work with in Allentown lost a large contract 2 years ago because they outsourced overseas, and you know they really struggled to replace that work. They lose those contracts because if a manufacturer goes to China or India, they can pay less in the short term, but again, you are paying in the long term, right? You pay on the environmental end, but you also are taking jobs away from your communities. So you're paying to subsidize people who can no longer afford to eat or house themselves. So that infrastructure is here, and it is in North Carolina. There are many groups of textile workers working together to try to meet our needs here. I think it's the Carolina Textile District is a group of textile producers in both of the Carolinas that worked together at the beginning of the shutdown to pull together and change their model to manufacture personal protective equipment. And they successfully did it because they were working cooperatively. So that infrastructure is here. We really need to invest in it.
So here's a couple come in that are all kind of like everyone's sort of on the same sort of wavelength here. So this one is not so much of a question. I think it's more of a kind of just a statement that big oil, gas, and timber and cotton will be obstructionist, and the average person values convenience over sustainability. And the comment is we need government to help with machinery and product development. And then a follow-up to that is, if subsidies were eliminated to the fossil fuel industry, would that alone bridge the gap of cost of sustainable products? Henry, I'll start with you. I think that's one that all three of you can probably address. So again, if subsidies were eliminated to the fossil fuel industry, would that alone bridge the gap of cost of these sustainable products?
I don't know if it'll bridge the entire gap, but it'll definitely help on the path getting there. And then to add to that as well, I think, you know, like Heidi's been talking about, and I'm sure with Glen, with, you know, plastics and construction or manufacturing, just getting some sort of incentives or, you know, grants. I know there's a lot of, you know, smaller towns and cities that, you know, are willing to invest in economic development and are probably opening their arms to bringing a manufacturing facility or something to that degree. So, you know, and if it's in a sustainable space that, you know, could really bring benefits and jobs at the same time, into this green new economy, I think, you know, those are the routes that we need to go. I think at a federal level will probably be much harder. But I think at a state level and at a local city level, I think bridging that gap could be easier. And I think once we get these manufacturing facilities and these larger production, you know, of equipment and locations, then, you know, they'll see that the industry is growing, it's supporting and really outputting the products and really, you know, testing the market and the demand for these things.
Heidi, any?
Yes, once these industries start to scale as well, you know, costs will come down, and so they will become more competitive just through the magic of mathematics and business. And so big oil and cotton being disruptive, that is why there is no bast fiber production in the United States. It's because those industries disrupted it. And they're obstructionist and they're favored through subsidies. So I think rolling back some of those subsidies would be a beginning to bridging this gap. And then like public investment in green jobs then would take it a step further so that these industries can scale and become more competitive.
Glenn, any thoughts on that further?
Yeah, from our perspective, the irony is over the long run, there's definitely a business model or case that might indicate that hemp plastic becomes cheaper than other plastics. We are a specialty material. We're a compounded material. So we're going to be more expensive than some fossil fuel plastics or many pure fossil fuel plastics simply because they're just so inexpensive. But I mean, even when we hit a very, very great success rate, we're still a very, very small percentage of the overall industry. So I think there's room enough for all of us. And our objective is just to try to help. A lot of the bigger plastics companies are also working on sustainable solutions themselves. I mean, the goal here is to try to save the planet. You know, my objective is to help people achieve what they're already trying to achieve. We are not generating new business or a new mentality here. The mentality already exists. People are already demanding sustainable materials. People are already looking for a way to achieve it. We are working with one company, I won't name them, but they buy hundreds of thousands of tons of virgin fossil fuel every year. And we're saying, well, look, let's help you with a small percentage of that. That's not going to change the fossil fuel plastics model that much, but it will help the environment quite a bit. So maybe we can, and we'll help that company achieve its sustainability objectives. So as long as we're just, you know, once we get to scale, I do believe that we'll have a cost competitive material in all of our fields. And it's about how do we get across, how do we cross the chasm per se to get to that scale? And the way we kind of look at it is you define specific markets that are of a large enough size that will adopt your material on the basis of its sustainable and maybe its appearance and other objectives, and then gains the enough scale in those particular verticals. And then you can say, okay, now I can branch out from those verticals and see where I can also solve the problem. And a big chunk of it, and I think this is what Henry was alluding to, is this concept of the whole product. You can't just wave your hand and say, okay, I've got hemp plastic, we're done. You have to say, okay, I've got hemp plastic that you can run in your machinery and I can show you how to do it. And it's not that hard. And you will have a sustainable solution available in volume at a reasonable price. Like you've got to kind of wrap around, you've got to handhold your customer and say, I've got a full solution for you that allows you to adopt this fairly easily, as opposed to just saying, I've got something that's really great for the environment. Well, in the end, they've got to look at it and say, how much production risk am I taking? How much cost risk am I taking? Am I going to be able to pass through these costs to my buyer? In the end, everybody's trying to run a business. So how do we make sure that what we do and what markets we target for the initial application of hemp products will actually adopt it, can afford it, and we provide them the full solution in order for them to do so. Once we've done that, yeah, they're going to start adopting this because it's a great product. That's the thing. This is great fabric. This is great concrete. This is great plastic. It's all very, very good stuff. So how do we get that across the board?
Can I add one thing to that too?
Please.
And I also think just like organics in the food industry, you know, a while ago, people are like, who are going to pay for like organic, non-GMO, locally sourced farmers market foods that people are paying a premium for? But you've seen that pendulum shift. You know, Costco's now selling, you know, the most, the largest seller of organics foods and things of that nature because people were educated. They understood the health benefits. of these products and changing the way that you eat. I think it's the same thing with our fabrics, with our plastics, with our construction materials, that even if it's still a little bit more costly and we're able to scale and still bring the price down, I think if the consumer is educated, they're willing to pay that little bit of a premium to understand all of the benefits that they'll be getting.
You know, Henry, I think you're right. I think that the consumer is way further ahead in that concept than I think many people give them credit for. With your
Especially
use of
young consumers. Young consumers are all over this because
yes.
they're looking at the next 40, 50 years of their life and saying, we've got to do something.
Yes. And so, and again, along the same theme. So obviously, Glenn, you talked about the holistic approach, of course, which Heidi and Henry have also, you know, the messaging that we as a society have to kind of put forward. And then along with the messaging, another question here was, and this is to all three of you, and you've sort of skated around the edges of it, but what type of financing from the state or federal government would help your companies grow faster? Like in what areas? Would it be in investing into education, or is it investing into new plants? Is it investing into ways to get it to market? I mean, what are sort of some of the challenges, and where could government put its finger on the scale to help move the needle?
I think for my particular industry, it would be investment in infrastructure.
Yeah. Henry, same with you, probably?
Same investment infrastructure, but also research. I think that with construction, it's a very performance-based industry as well. Not that plastics and things aren't either, but in terms of the energy use of your structures and your building. So if you can equate a dollar figure to how much energy savings you have because of the insulative properties and figuring out the toxicities of these structures, I think research and R&D would only exponentially grow the perceived value of these types of materials.
Glenn, I'm assuming that would be, you probably have a similar, or do you feel that the research and development with what you're doing is a little further ahead, or would that also be a big help?
I think information helps in this circumstance. More information is better, and more foundation in science is great. And so I agree on the research side. I also think that most, you've got this. I think we can all agree that hemp is a transformational technology. It just happens to be a plant, but it has immense benefits, immense economic potential once we reach scale. So I think a lot of these technologies and a lot of these ideas that are currently at that forming stage, that very, what I would call risk capital stage, very high risk capital without, maybe different for us because we know what our verticals are, but a lot of these verticals, it's like, okay, how am I going to get this product to market? So if governments are going to step in, they might find ways to co-invest or find ways to, add value to this so that we can take away some of the risk associated with investing in this. Once we reach scale, our costs will go down, will be extremely competitive, and it will run on its own. But these early stage companies or early stage organizations, we all deal with that. It's like, okay, I got to put money up front and I got to get a yield on that. What's my yield? And so there's that bridge between venture capital and that risk capital area. And how do we get these companies across the line? And then that means, how do I measure whether this company or this organization that I'm investing in is going to effectively be able to do that? So government support in that area helps.
Great. Okay, we're getting close to the end here, but there's a few more questions I wanted to get to. So this is one sort of a practical, I'm not sure if Heidi, you can answer this one, but it says, how many acres could a regional mill handle? Is there any company who already has a mill like this to support regional decortication here in Pennsylvania?
Right, so the size of regional sketch mill that I'm looking at would process 1,200 acres annually. And to my knowledge, there is no such facility in the United States. So if I'm wrong, if somebody knows of one, please let me know. But so far we haven't found one.
Okay, so I guess the follow-up to that is, let me see if I've got it here. So what specific challenges are ahead, Heidi, for what you're trying to do? Is what you're trying to do, is this a pie in the sky model, or do you really believe you could do this and restore this industry back in Pennsylvania?
I believe that this is achievable in 3 to 5 years, based on research that the women at Fiber Revolution have done in collaboration with European producers. So, once you get one regional mill up and operational, you get another one operational, and pretty soon they're in every region all over the United States, and you can process a lot more of the plant into spinnable fiber. This industry is not new. I don't have to invent it, right? We just have to work with people who are already doing this work in Canada and in Europe. They have models that produce fabrics that I source and I pay a competitive amount for, right? And designers and upholsterers all over the United States are sourcing this fabric from Europe and Canada, where they are doing this work and paying living wages. So I don't see any reason why we can't just buckle down and make it happen here.
That'll be conversations we will continue to have here, Heidi, because I think it is sort of restoring an industry that this country used to lead the world in. So right. given everything that's going on, this could be timely.
And in particular, Pennsylvania, flax was brought to Pennsylvania, to Germantown, by Germans in 1691. The flax flower is in the seal of Germantown. Like where I am sitting right now was probably a flax field not that long ago. So, I think it's a great time to revitalize the industry here. And I don't have specific numbers simply because I haven't gotten that far in this yet. I'm in year 1. But in January, I will be sharing business plan with the women in Oregon, and I'll have specifics on what the equipment will cost and how much square footage it will require and how many jobs it will create at what pay scale. So I'll be ready to move forward in 2021. Great,
thank you, Heidi. So I just wanted to share this. You might find this interesting, Henry. It says, for Project Pennsylvania Hemp Home, we are collaborating with the Pennsylvania Housing Research Center and Parsons School of Design for upcoming research on a retrofit with Hempcrete in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. This project will help make the case for Hempcrete for builders. PA-grown hemp from our Test Acres program is being made into hemp wood, which will be used in the project. And Lori has put her email in there in the group chat.
Yeah, I saw that. Super exciting. I've heard amazing things about Lori, and what an incredible project. And the Parsons School of Design is another amazing, especially their Healthy Materials Lab, an amazing resource for hemp lime information, but also they have classes on healthy and sustainable design, and also healthy affordable housing, or sustainable affordable housing. So you guys got amazing resources in the Northeast up there.
Well, thank you very much, Henry. You're right. And my alarm just went off. So that means that the session we now have to bring it to a close. So I want to thank everyone for participating in the panel this morning. So everyone that's on with us here, let's give our speakers a round of applause. Thank you so much. Before we leave, I would like to take a quick moment to recognize our top level sponsors and partners for this year's Pennsylvania Hemp Summit. Lancaster Farming, King's Agri-Seeds, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture's Agricultural Business Development Center, and Air Products. In the session surveys, folks, please fill out the survey for this session. Networking is a key feature of the summit, so please network virtually by using the chat, connecting with your business profile, and visiting the forum. Take this opportunity, please, to visit our sponsors. Without them, of course, these kinds of programs wouldn't be possible. We'll meet back as a group at 1 p.m. for the general session, Hemp for All, building a just, socially inclusive, and competitive system. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.